They say the night shift changes you. It's not just the sleep deprivation. It's the way the world looks when the sun isn't there to supervise it. I work data entry for a logistics firm. The office is on the fourth floor of a glass and steel monolith overlooking an old industrial district. Directly across the street stands an abandoned textile mill, a skeletal remains of the 1920s with hollowed-out windows that look like missing teeth. I first saw it on a Tuesday, around 2:15 a.m. I was rubbing my eyes, leaning back from the blue light of my monitor, when I noticed a movement in the third-floor window of the mill. It wasn't a bird or a squatter. It was a face, pale, stationary, and illuminated by a nearby street lamp. It was smiling. Not a friendly smile. A wide, practiced crescent that seemed to stretch just half an inch too far toward the ears. I watched it for 10 minutes. It didn't blink. It didn't move. I told myself it was a mannequin left behind by a prankster. But mannequins don't have eyes that catch the light like wet glass. Wednesday night, the temperature dropped. The fog rolled in off the river, turning the street below into a gray soup. I tried not to look. I focused on the spreadsheets, the humming of the HVAC system, the distant squeak of the janitor's cart 3 floors down. But curiosity is a heavy thing. At 3 a.m. I looked. The figure was still there, but it wasn't in the third-floor window anymore. It was on the 4th floor, exactly level with me. It was closer to the glass now. I could see the detail of the suit, a dark, moth-eaten wool, and the skin, which looked like wet parchment stretched over a skull. And the smile, God, the smile, it was wider. I could see rows of teeth, unnaturally white and perfectly square, like a row of tombstones. There was no nose, just 2 vertical slits, and the eyes were nothing but deep, oily voids. It was staring directly at my cubicle. It wasn't looking at the building. It was looking at me. By Thursday, the paranoia had set in. I kept the blinds closed, but the knowledge of what was behind them felt like a physical weight on my back. I told my supervisor, but he just laughed, blaming the night shift hallucinations. He told me to drink more coffee. To prove him wrong, to prove myself wrong, I decided to test it. At 1:30 a.m., I stood up, walked to the window, and slowly raised the blinds. It was there, closer still. It was pressing its face against the glass of the abandoned mill, its breath not even fogging the pain. I felt a surge of cold spite. I raised my hand and waved, a slow, mocking wave. The entity didn't wave back. Instead, it slowly, millimeter by agonizing millimeter, tilted its head to the side. Its neck cracked audibly, a sound that somehow traveled across the street and through my double-pane glass. The head kept tilting until it was at a perfect 90-degree angle, the smile never wavering, the black eyes never leaving mine. That's when I realized it wasn't a mannequin. It was a predator waiting for the cage to open. Friday was supposed to be my day off. I stayed home, locked the doors, and drew the curtains of my apartment. I live in a modern complex, also on the 4th floor. I felt safe. I spent the evening watching mindless television, trying to drown out the memory of that head tilt. But around midnight, the air in my bedroom turned frigid. A sudden sharp tink echoed through the room, like a fingernail tapping on glass. My heart hammered against my ribs. I turned toward my bedroom window. My apartment is standalone. There are no balconies, no ledges, and certainly no trees tall enough to reach the 4th floor. Tink, tink, tink. I crept toward the window, my breath hitching. I pulled the curtain back just an inch. He was there, the man from the mill. He was suspended in the air, 4 stories up, his face inches from my glass. The smile was so wide now that the corners of his mouth were beginning to tear, dark fluid weeping down his chin. He wasn't tapping with a finger. He was tapping with a long, yellow tooth he held in his hand. I screamed and fell back, scrambling into the hallway. I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room with every light on, clutching a kitchen knife until the sun rose. When morning came, I convinced myself I was having a psychotic break. I went to the window to prove it was empty. The figure was gone. The sky was a beautiful, mocking blue. But as I started to close the window to lock it, I saw them. Faint, oily smudges on the glass. I reached out to wipe them away, thinking they were on the outside. My hand met the glass, but the smudges didn't move. I moved my hand to the inside of the pane. My fingers traced the oily marks. They were fingerprints, long, elongated swirls. They were on the inside of my locked fourth-floor window. He hadn't been trying to get in. He was already here. The sun doesn't help when the shadow is already inside. I spent the day in a daze, the world feeling thin and translucent. I avoided mirrors. I avoided windows. But as 1 a.m. approached, the compulsion became unbearable. I went into the bathroom to splash cold water on my face. The fluorescent light flickered, humming with a dying energy. I looked down into the sink, watching the water swirl. Then I slowly raised my eyes to the mirror. I wasn't alone. In the reflection, he was standing in the hallway behind me. He was taller than I imagined, thin as a rail, his suit hanging off his frame like a shroud. The smile was no longer just a mouth. It was a cavern of white teeth that seemed to glow. He didn't move toward me. He just stood there, his head tilted at that horrific 90-degree angle. I realized then that he didn't want to kill me. He was waiting for me to recognize him, to accept the smile. If you're listening to this, and you work the late hours, pay attention. The world at 1 a.m. isn't the same world you know at noon. If you see a figure in a window across the street, do not look twice. If you hear a tap on the glass where no one could possibly be, do not open the curtains. And most importantly, if you find yourself in front of a mirror and you feel a presence behind you, do not look at his reflection. Because once you see the smile in the window, it stops being outside. It becomes a part of your architecture. It's 12:59 a.m. right now. I can hear the floorboards creaking behind me. My own muscles are twitching, my cheeks pulling upward, my lips stretching against my will. Don't look at the windows, don't look at the mirrors. And whatever you do, do not smile back.